Hello, my friend. I'm CharLee Simons, and this is Do Not Talk, talking about the things we're not supposed to talk about, talking to the people I'm not supposed to talk to. Benito Bernal is on my show today. Who? What? Benito. He ran for office. He's a strong conservative, a follower of Christ Jesus, fellow Christian, and has some great ideas and some great things to say. And I appreciate him very much. And I wanted to introduce him to you. So he signed up through my website, by the way, which you can as well. You want to be a guest on this show, you can do that at charleesimons.com. You can also click on that merch tab, get yourself one of these awesome mugs. Let's talk about politics and religion. Big old 15-ounce coffee mug. Of course, it's red. And I got hats, got shirts, got mugs, and it's all to help this show stay on the air and even grow. Because when you buy the product, you're helping this show financially, and you get something nice out of it too. You'll find that all at charleesimons.com. And also, you want to check into some products that are great for your body, for your mind, for your soul, right here at nuevalife.com/CharLee Simons. Naturally derived products, great stuff, and all American made, and as much as possible sourced in the United States of America. It's a newer company, and I'm glad to be a part of it. You'll be helping the show grow there as well. If you check out some of those products and you're like, oh, I like that, use that link that I just gave you, because it'll give you a discount on the products at Nueva, Nueva, life.com/CharLee Simons, CharLeeSimons. All right, let's meet Benito Bernal right now on Do Not Talk. Ready? Hit it. Yeah! Buddy, how are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. So, it's been some rough days, but you know what? God puts us through a pruning process. Sometimes that little rose bush has got to be pruned, to get us in the right direction or to get our attention. And sometimes it's not even for us, it's meant for family members. So that's situations we've been dealing with the last few days, but that's why I'm late, for being on your show. So I apologize. But want to tell a little bit to your listeners about, my background. So I'm the youngest of 10 kids. My family comes from Michoacan, Mexico. I was born and raised here in the city of Los Angeles. I grew up, and the reason why I want to share this background is because of what's going on with Cesar Chavez today. I think we can tie that in. So I grew up picking cucumbers.
Before you go on, not everybody knows about that because the media has been very quiet on this. But Cesar Chavez has had some accusers step forward, some women saying, are you kidding? This guy was a freak. He did this and that to me, and he forced that on me, and he made me do this and that. And all of a sudden, the Democrat Party has no idea what to do because they have worshipped at the altar of Cesar Chavez for decades now. And they're even talking about taking down the bust of him in the state capitol building and all kinds of stuff because of these accusations. This is like the Me Too movement all over, isn't it, Benito?
Well, CharLee, it's interesting, the perspective that people have, but, growing up in the movement, being the youngest of 10, and understanding who Cesar Chavez truly was, this is actually the Democrats that put that out. And I'm going to explain to you why. But before I do, we'll get back to that, just so your listeners understand. Growing up in this movement, my father always said, hey, the clothes on your back, the food on the table, the roof over your head comes from your hardworking hands. There are government programs out here in the United States that are there in case of emergency. Not something you live off of. That's something my father really instilled with us. So my older brothers and sisters were also involved with the Chavez movement. So now let's fast forward. I'm in high school. I'm the class president. I'm one of the first DJs up in LA. I've got the popularity. I have everything that a man thinks he wants to fill that void in his heart, but doesn't happen. It only happened with Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, when I received him. So I share that because going out of high school, I've always had it in my blood. Before my dad died, about 2 months before, I said, Dad, why is it that I'm always fighting for people? He says, Mijo, it's in your blood. Your name Benito comes from Benito Juarez and Benito Canales. Our bloodline goes back to that. So there's a bloodline of revolution of standing up for the people, right? So I back in 2002, this is very important for your listeners to understand because it ties in to what's going on with Chavez. We always blame, growing up in the Chicano movement, growing up in the Mecha movement, we always blame the white man for the failures. The white man's keeping us down, this and that. So I said, all right, guys, this is when I was a Democrat. I said, why don't we build a powerful Latino political machine? So 5 issues we're going to deal with, CharLee: gang violence, teenage dropout, teenage pregnancy, the abuse in the welfare system, and illegal immigration. This was Democrats. And you're talking Senator Padilla, you're talking about former Congressman Cardenas, Becerra, Villaraigosa. I grew up and mentored a lot of these gentlemen to build this team. But here's what happened, Charles, is 4 or 5 years into the process, our goal was to run for every level of government, school board, city council, commissioners, and even the courts. And think about this, eventually the presidency in 2028, which is right around the corner, right? So we get people elected to every level of government. We have private meetings. And at this private meeting, I asked them, gentlemen, these 5 issues that we were going to deal with, we always blame the white man for the failures. Now it's all of us, brown-skinned people in office. And things have gotten worse. So what's going on? None of them would answer me. They literally put their hands between their legs and look down. The one man that controls them, he's a lobbyist and a developer. Remember that. So he says, Benito, let me ask you 3 questions. He says, number 1, if we solve all these issues you're talking about, then what issues will our candidates run on the next time they run for office? He says, number 2, do you realize how much money comes into our city and the states because of the problems we're dealing with? That's where you tie in the NGOs. Number three, because I was an elected union vice president for SEIU, he says, do you realize how many jobs are created because of this? So I'm like, okay, so let me just get this straight. So what you guys are telling me, the Democratic Latino political machine, what you're telling me is that as long as our kids keep killing each other, as long as we have young girls getting pregnant, dropping out of school, depending on the government program, destroying the nuclear family, that there's money to be made, so we're going to do absolutely nothing? And he just crossed his arms and he goes, that's the Marxist way. Think about that. That was in early 2000. That's when I was a part of the secession movement trying to separate the valley from the city. For that very reason, taxation without representation, right? And here I am a Democrat. So all these Padilla, Cardenas, Alarcón, all of them were a part of the executive board member in Valley Vote. Suddenly, they see that movement is gaining momentum, which would strip a lot away of their powers, right? That's all they cared about was their powers. The Democratic Party, first the unions came to us and said, anybody on this board, if you don't remove yourself, you'll never get the endorsement from the party or the unions again. So they all left. I was the only one left. That's when they sent Bobby Fiedler, who was a congresswoman, most powerful congresswoman back then, to meet with me and kind of made the same, kind of the same threats. If you don't leave, I said, look, first of all, I don't need your endorsements. I go, but if we remove ourselves from this table, then who's going to be left to talk about our issues? So long story short, I was pretty much excommunicated from the powers to be within the Democratic Party and the unions. But because of the influence in my track record of fighting for people, if the union endorsed a candidate and I and my group endorsed a different candidate, our candidates were winning. So that was saying something. The difference that we made. That's why I want to tie this kind of into a little bit of what's going on with Chavez. So in 2016, I felt the Lord say, you're going to run for Congress as a Democrat against Tony Cardenas, who was a Latino caucus leader, the guy I helped get into office, right? And I'm like, Lord, okay. He says, you're not going to raise any money. You're not going to make any phone calls. You're not going to put any flyers, nothing. You're just going to get your name on the ballot. I have a plan. Okay, that sounds crazy, but okay. My advisors, political advisors, didn't agree with it, but I did it anyways. And lo and behold, God was exposing so much corruption that in 2018, I believe it was, when I ran again for office, when God said, you're going to do it again, right? Now we have allegations, and I'm tying this into what's going on with Chavez, right? There's allegations of a very powerful politician who was facing sexual allegations of a minor that he drugged. Now, the first hearing, there wasn't enough evidence to name him. So there was a second hearing. In the second hearing, the judge said there's definitely enough evidence. Who was that individual? Congressman Tony Cardenas. Whatever happened to him? Why is it that now this movement here who was attacking Chavez, and it's not true to begin with, you know, I'm not here to defend whether he did it or not, but knowing Chavez, knowing all the people that we did, our question is, why now?
Yeah.
But here's the why, Charles. When I saw being a part of being a strategist, right, an organizer, mobilizer for the left, I realized I know their agenda. Their agenda was to take God out of the picture. That was number one.
Always.
Take him out of the hotels, out of the schools, right?
Always.
Then they were slowly going to start indoctrinating our children, you know, by removing parental rights. Everything else was in the schools. Everything that we've seen was planned. But there was something that wasn't planned because, you know, as when you're a mentor or a teacher, you teach them everything they know, but you don't teach them everything you know, right? You always keep that little thing to the side. And that's what I did with the Democratic leadership. So here they put all their eggs into one basket, all thinking the woke agenda, the transgender agenda. We got it. We've got the people. We've got them on our side. I said, no, you don't, because God is in the center of this all. In the spiritual realm is what's going to lift up. So
Amen.
my goal was my strategy was to say, okay, I told the leaders of the Republican Party, I said, they're going to use immigration as their number one issue because they're going to lose. The reason why they're going to use immigration is because the woke agenda lost. The reason why they went woke was because first and second generation Americans like myself, we became educated enough to see what Padilla, Cardenas, what the left was voting for. So they lost our support. So in order to gain that voter base, they had to have the open borders. They had to open up the borders, allow the illegal immigrants to come in to continue their voter base. That's why they're fighting against the SAVE Act.
That's what I said all along. I've said that for years. They're not undocumented workers. They're undocumented Democrats. And the whole motor voter law that Jerry Brown put into place, at the time, I was like, and we're giving illegals legal driver's licenses for what reason? And then it became clear, motor voter law. Oh, by the way, since you have a driver's license, why don't you get registered to vote? Except for you who are not here legally. Wink, wink. Now we got millions voting, millions who are not actual citizens of the United States of America, especially in the sanctuary state of California and the sanctuary city of Los Angeles, who are voting for everything on the left because that's where the freebies come from. I don't believe they really want rights and privileges and so on. I think they want the freebies to continue, and they know where that comes from. And it's always from the left because all they're interested in is power and money. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and that's why, you know, being in the Republican Party, you know, moving forward, I started seeing all the corruption, and I'll let you guys know, let your listeners know, the one gentleman that they plan on running for president, and it was Alex Padilla, you know, and I've been saying this for 8 years, and nobody wanted to listen to me. You know, I've had deep conversations with Sean Steele. I'll tell you right now, the Republican leadership in California has sold its soul. You know, I, myself, and there's plenty of us who are really considering on leaving the Republican Party, simply because it's all become, it's exactly what I saw taking place in the Democratic Party. In 2016 or 2018, I think when I ran for Congress as a Republican, I spoke at the convention. They actually, some of the leaders were asking me to stop introducing myself because I first want to give all the praise and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Because if
Amen.
It wasn't for him, I'd be dead or in jail. You know, I grew up in Pacoima. I grew up in the wild streets, but Jesus saved my life. So I said, I'm not going to stop that. But I was concerned, like, wait a minute, this is the Republican Party. So then years start to go on, and I started to see in this log cabin. And then here I am working with conservative groups, including, like, you know, the LAHRC, the rest of them. And I'm seeing, okay, guys, wait a minute. We're people of faith. I came to the Republican Party because it stands for God and its morals and its values. I said, not for all this that I'm seeing. And here we are, supposed to be faith-based groups, pastors, Christians, and we're supporting and endorsing candidates who are proudly endorsed by the log cabin. Now, so your listeners understand, I have family and friends that are gay. I got nothing against them. That's between you and your maker. But when you start indoctrinating our children, and when you as a log cabin refuse to stand with us when we're doing all our protests, leave the kids alone, parental, they refuse to show up. They wouldn't even let us post it on their Facebook pages.
Nope.
So I started to challenge them, and I'm saying, something's wrong here. So God has slowly been waking me up. He told me, it was a couple years ago. Do you remember the protest at Dodger Stadium? That big protest they had because of the perpetual. Yeah. So God said, organize this event with a bunch of different leaders, bring the churches together, Catholic, Christians, and the Jewish community together. Well, that's how I met Rabbi Michael Barkley. So we had this big event at Dodger Stadium protest because they were going to honor the perpetual nuns. That was the beginning where God said, wake up the churches. He says, we're in this situation.
Let's pause there a quick second, Benito, because I want people to understand what you're talking about. Not everybody does. Not everybody's as involved as we are. So I never want to assume that everyone knows. Two things. You mentioned log cabin Republicans. Not everybody knows who they are. I know full well, and I see what they're doing. And you mentioned the Ladies of Perpetual. That was that horrible thing that they had performing at Dodger Stadium and highlighting it on their gay day when it was a bunch of men dressed as nuns doing extremely horrible things, mocking Christ Jesus, mocking God's people. It was just horrible what they did. And I was never a Dodgers fan before, but there's no chance of me ever becoming one now because they did that. But you organized a protest against that, or at least a different voice to all the people there at Dodger Stadium, which so many people would have never done that because they're afraid. They're scared of what I call the homo mafia. And for good reason. I've been doxxed. I've been attacked. I've had death threats. And they're always the most severe from the homosexual side of things. They go after you. They will ruin you. They will ruin your business. They will boycott you. And that's why I call them the homo mafia, because that's how they act. It's through coercion and fear that they get control, and then they keep it and they rule it with an iron fist. I don't even want to know where they're trying to put that fist. But explain, that's what you're talking about at Dodger Stadium for everyone who doesn't know. But explain who the log cabin Republicans are.
So it's a new chartered group within the Republican Party. So it's pretty much the LGBTQ, pushing all of that agenda. They're trying to, it's all about what they've tried to explain to me is having a bigger umbrella. I said, okay, that's the exact words that were used when I was a Democrat and within the unions. Let's get a bigger umbrella, So what is it really all about? Is it just about winning elections, or is it really about doing the right thing for people, especially American citizens, but more importantly, serving the man up above? Charles, you're here in this podcast. You're very successful because of where you stand and what you speak of. God has given you favor. He's allowing you to expose and to touch people's hearts, to bring on people like me and others to just bring light to this darkness. And I tell, like right now, what's going on with Cesar Chavez, that was intentional. My strategy was that if they're going to use immigration as their number one issue, then my strategy was to get out as much information as possible where Cesar Chavez stood on illegal immigration. And I'll go back to 2016. Cesar Chavez High School and Sylmar High School in city of Sylmar. There's a high school called Cesar Chavez. They have a memorial there every year for Cesar Chavez. I was running for Congress. I got invited. Dolores Huerta was there to speak as well. So she gets up and speaks, and they're talking about Cesar Chavez and how supportive he was of illegal immigrants. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. No. And I was still a Democrat, right? So I got up to speak, and I'm like, okay, first of all, let me let you my background. Let me tell you where I come from. Picking cucumber, Stockton, Lorraine, Modesto. I lived in Harney Lane Camp. I did it all. So I connected the dots. I broke down the barrier. And I said, Cesar Chavez did not support illegal
No,
immigration. And I'm
did
going to
not.
tell you why. I'm going to tell you two reasons why. Number second reason you guys don't talk about. First reason was that people like us who are trying to live the American dream, first, second generation Americans, when they say who will work the fields, we will. First, second generation, because it's known that that's how we get our foot into the American dream. But because you have illegal immigrants who are willing to work the field, we pick cucumbers. They paid us 25 cents a bucket when we should have been paid 50 cents a bucket. That's what Chavez was fighting for. Better wages. We had no water, no restrooms. We had nothing. Chavez fought for all of that, right? He got all of that for us. But here's what happened. They never gave you cash. When you dumped the bucket, they didn't give you a quarter. They gave you a ticket or a tag, and they punch your tag, right? And then every 2 weeks, the property owners would show up with a cash box. You line up, and then everybody turns in their tickets or whatever. They get their cash. What do you think the property owners would call? Immigration. So immigration would show up. All the illegals would run. So he would get 2 weeks of free labor, right? And he would do this all the time. So Chavez said, I'm also fighting to protect the illegal immigrants who are being abused, right? So don't come across here because you're taking our work and you're not going to get paid either. So he had twofold. But that's the second part is what the Democrats and the left will never talk about.
I had no idea. I had no idea that was going on. Listen. I come from the po folk side of the tracks. Just a good old boy from Bakersfield. I have family that during the Dust Bowl, when they came out to California, they were working in the fields.
Mm-hmm.
They were working in the canneries. My family, I got that history. So it wasn't just, as Chuck Schumer says, well, who's going to be picking our crops? That's so insulting to everybody. Like, that's all you can ever do if you're Hispanic, is pick crops and clean their toilets. That's how they look at everybody who has a brown skin. That's how they look at you. That's what they think of you. And it's insulting. That's some of the most racist talk I've ever heard. But it wasn't always that way. It was just the people who didn't have the education to get the higher paying jobs. So they did what they could, and it was physical labor. They did what they knew, physical labor. We've all been better educated. We have more access to libraries and reading and so on and so forth than ever before. And we've gotten better. We've gotten smarter. We're able to do things other than just pick cucumbers. But there's people, when they come across illegally, who will do whatever they can if they can't get the freebies. Well, now it's all been opened up during the Biden years. It really starting way back at Bill Clinton, where he acted like he was anti-immigration, but yet they were putting everything into place to make it as easy as possible to stay here if you're here illegally. And, oh, you've been here for a while, so now we'll grant you amnesty. Changing the electorate is all it's about. Changing the population to people who come from countries that are mostly socialist, so they're going to continue voting for those ideals because that's all they know. But now these folks have gotten better educated. They're waking up like you. They're realizing, son of a bitch, we've been lied to. We've been used for our vote. We don't want that anymore. And now the left is freaking out because it is all about Marxism. It is all about Marxism, which is communism. And socialist programs are communist programs. Socialism is just communism light. And give it time, they'll turn it into a communist society. It's erosion from within. In the fifth largest economy in the world, California, they have opened the doors and welcomed. And not only that, we're going to protect you. We're not going to let ICE send you back. Oh, no, we got your best interest at heart because we really care about you. They don't. That's a lie. And people like Benito have woken up. I love your passion. I love your experience and your knowledge. I am so glad that you are on the show. I think that you and I are going to have a lot of conversations in the future because you and I come from similar backgrounds, but just different experiences because of our skin color. But even those on my side of where I grew up, there were a whole lot of welfare moms. Whole lot of welfare there. And they sat around all day watching their soap operas. You could hear the TV blasting with the doors open and the screens closed as I'm walking down the street hearing the theme of These Are the Days of Our Lives. all the way down the street as I'm walking to where I lived with my grandparents. And that was out in a town called Fairfax, which is south of Bakersfield.
Perfect.
Most Bakersfieldians don't even know where Fairfax is, but it was almost all a farming and migrant community. I was one of the few whites there. So I come from a perspective that most don't. I've seen it. I know what it's like. And I know the people who abuse it and use it to their advantage. And they know as long as they keep voting for Democrats, they're going to keep getting those freebies coming without any kind of responsibility. And it's not sustainable, Benito. It just isn't.
Nope.
Eventually, you run out of other people's money. What's going on now with the unions? Let's just talk about the unions, which you were a head of the union. I was a shop steward for AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, when I did Morning Drive for ABC Radio in San Francisco. I saw how the unions were. It was constantly trying to represent us to work less and to get paid even more. It was so stupid, I couldn't even hit the record button on the tape machine, Benito. I had to go get an engineer, not a board op, not a producer, an engineer to come in and hit record. And then when I was through recording whatever I was going to do, I had to go get that engineer again to come back and hit stop. That's insane. It's not sustainable. And I was right. Look at all the broadcast unions are gone. It all got absorbed by SAG, but it's all failing because you can't keep doing this and actually stay competitive in a world market. Are people waking up to that now on the union side of things, do you think?
People have been waking up going back even probably 14 years ago, 16 years ago, Charles. And it started back when I was, actually it's even further than that. It was back in 2004. And it started within SEIU Local 99, where I was the vice president. And we realized that, okay, wait a minute. Their strategy was to identify individuals who grew up in the hood like me, right? And put them in a position of power, because had it not been for me being elected into the unions, I would have probably never been in a 5-6-star hotel. I would have never flown first class. I would have never gone to these fancy restaurants where they feed me steak and lobster and cigars if you want, and as much alcohol as you want to drink, and that's what they do. They find individuals like that who have never lived that lifestyle. They give them all this and they own them. And then when you start seeing that the policies are going, a lot of them, they enjoy it.
You start liking that, living that way. And as long as you keep towing the line, and as long as you keep bringing in more people like you, we're going to keep feeding you and treating you this way. You're absolutely right. It is.
So here's what happened. So I started what's called an agency fee fair share. I told people, look, if they're not going to listen to us, and I was the vice president leading this, so I had the death threats, I had the money, I had everything that, hey, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, just be standing. No, I'm here for the people. So I told the people, go agency fee fair share, because if you just go agency fee, all that means they're still getting the same amount of money. You just can't go to meetings and you can't vote. But if you go agency fee fair share, now whatever money's that used for politics, which is usually 50%, no longer comes out of your pocket. They can't take that out. So we got this movement going. We cost the unions millions. So they started to wake up. Okay, we got to listen to the people. We got to listen to the people. They still didn't. So that's when you had that now that you have the right. The Janus decision started. Some of that conversation had also started out of my local. And then you had the Supreme Court made the decision where now you can actually just fill out one simple form and they can't take out any money and they still have to represent you. But here's what the unions do. When I was in the middle of this fight, this was when Obama was running for president.
He's talking about dues, by the way. I'm so sorry for interrupting. Again, I want to make sure everybody understands, though. He's talking about paying dues. You used to have to. If you're going to be in a union shop, you had to join the union, period, or you weren't going to get to work there. You will be gone. And then a federal government stepped in and said, no, you can't force people to keep paying dues like this. That's what he's talking about. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So we were paying $100 a month, and that's, $100 to $150 a month. And when you're talking 300,000 members, that's a lot of money. It adds up for these unions. So here we are. I've got all this opposition against the unions. I mean, I'm just pushing. I'm exposing all the corruption. I expose the corruption within my local. If you look it up, Local 99, City Councilman Martin Ludlow, he had to resign because his hands were in the cookie jar. All the executive board was forced to resign because going back in late 1900s, we were the first local to have what we call, now we have the phone banking system. I happened to walk into a room. I was running for city council against Alex Padilla, and my union was going to endorse Alex Padilla, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, the guy's not even a union guy. At that time, I was a union steward, so the members were upset. So I went to the union hall to go talk to the president, and I happened to see this door, Charles, and I said, that's strange. So I walk in this door, and I walk downstairs. What do I see? 100 computers, all set up with, like headphones. And think about it. This is late in the 1998, 2000, right? And I'm like, okay, what is this? So I walk upstairs, and the president has to be walking by. Her name was Janet Humphreys. She says, Benny, you're not supposed to see that, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, what is that? Right? So she goes, look, we'll give you the endorsement. We'll take it away from Alex. Just be silent on what you saw. Oh, I said, okay. I walked out. I pulled my papers. I'm not going to run against
You don't even know
Alex
what you
Padilla.
saw.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you right now. So I said, I'm not going to run against Alex. I'm going to run against you. And what we found out, Charles, was that system downstairs, not only was the computers, we had 3 mobile trailers with satellites that every presidential candidate, even Republicans, were using back then, but mainly Democrats, right? They'd pop it out into your neighborhood, open it up, and it reaches out to a 5-mile radius to all the registered voters. And then the registered voters, they come out, and meet your candidate. How powerful was that 25 years ago, 28 years ago? That was like very powerful. So what I found out was, in doing our research, that was bought and paid for by union members' money. And our board incorporated it and called it a company called Talinx. So in my investigation, in my exposing them, the Department of Labor, the federal government got involved. All of them were removed from office. All of them were facing federal charges. And I'm talking some serious federal charges. But because of the juice and the power that they have, I don't think any of them ever served time. But Council Member Martin Ludlow did have to resign. Now we're going to the convention over in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Even when they resign, it doesn't matter. They're just whomever's above them appoints somebody else who's just as bad as them.
True.
That's what they do.
But what they did, but what they did in this instance was they put us under receivership. So that was the International's way of stripping all the locals that were starting to speak up. And I was getting to that because at the convention, the president was running for re-election, Andy Stern. And every year they get 100% support, right? Well, I was there to oppose him. So they fly me out directly, me and the president, in a private, we go out privately, we get to Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, we're having dinner. And all of a sudden I see Bill Lloyd. His name is Bill Lloyd. He was Governor Davis's right-hand man when he was governor out there. He represented all the labor unions. President gets up and walk away. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Did you sell your soul too? And he just walks and I look, okay, Bill, what do you want? He says, Benny, I was a school bus driver, driving a yellow bus, wearing a blue uniform. He says, we're tired of seeing you in a blue uniform in a yellow school bus. He says, here's the deal. We're going to merge all the locals in the state of California, all of SEIU, every local under one umbrella, and you're going to be the president. You're going to get $300,000 a year. And I'm like, so what's the catch? He says, you have to drop your charges against the international president. I said, okay, are we done here? Thank you for dinner. You know my answer. And he goes, she goes, before you leave, he says, I'm going to tell you this. If you don't drop your charges, you are not going to leave this island.
We will ruin.
And I don't have much hair. So I went, I may not have much hair, but as the word of God says, you can't touch a hair on my head if he doesn't allow you. And I don't think you understand. For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. I don't fear that death. So I got up and walked away. That was what, when Obama was first going to run for president. I'm still alive. Going back to your point, Charles, when you do things for the power of God, for the glory of God, I don't care how many death threats. I've had them all, and I still have them today. But you know what? God has my back, because it's not about me, Charles. And what you do, it's not about you. You're spreading truth. And your listeners need to understand that this is not about party politics right now. There is a spiritual war that has been going on. God literally put me in the hospital because I wouldn't listen to him. He made me run for office again in 2024. I did not want to run. I was done. They had to remove 13 inches of my large intestine. That's how bad it was. But God spoke to me, even in the hospital. He said, this doctor's going to see you're not going to take any pain meds. You're going to get that done, and I'm going to get you back out there tomorrow. You're going to be back at them rallies. I told the doctor, I don't need any meds. I don't need anything. I told him what God said. He laughed. But I had no pain, Charles. I had nothing. I was back out at the rallies, leave our kids alone the very next day, and everybody's in shock. Like, what are you doing here? That's the power of God. You have to understand, God is calling us right now to fight for the children, because the Democrats, the unions, and even Republicans, they're coming after the hearts, minds, and souls of our children. And when we allowed the log cabin to be chartered within the party, I felt the spiritual connection. I felt the evil that just, and I'm not saying people, they're bad, you know what I'm saying, Charles? But it's like you feel the spirit that comes with it. And until the Republican Party addresses that issue, there is no more conservative party. There's no more conservative party. And that's my biggest fear right now, Charles, is that, and that's why I and many others are considering leaving the party, becoming independent, and just fighting on the issues.
I pray you don't. I pray you don't, because then we will really never win another election, which I think is the ultimate goal. Splinter, conquer, divide and conquer. I pray you don't. I pray you work with me and David Serpa. Do you know who he is?
Yes, sir.
He was a governor's candidate. He's
Yes,
now withdrawn from that. He's running to be treasurer. He just put out a video, I think it was on Instagram, that just knocked me out. He called the California Republican Party out. He called out the log cabin Republicans, like you're talking about, the homo mafia. He called out the women who have taken over, the Karens, basically, who have taken over so much control over the party, and the men are not stepping up. And the fact that any men who try to, like Mike Morrell, running to be chair of the CAGOP, who I admire and respect, got completely railroaded in that election. And I was there. I saw that sign flash up on the screen saying that there was some kind of problem. Then I saw votes suddenly, 1,000 votes suddenly, or 100 votes suddenly disappear. They just disappeared. And anybody who stepped up and went, what was that? What did we just see? They were gavelled out. Jessica Patterson is the worst thing that ever happened to the California Republican Party. But yet it was the body that put her in that position of power. Now, you can say that there was some cheating going on, and I now strongly believe that there is. There's nefarious things going on in the California Republican Party. Now, Corinne Rankin, who's running the party, I've met her. I've had her on the air. She's very charming. She's very nice. This is before she was chair. But I knew she was just Jessica Patterson light, because when that conversation was over, Benito, was when I said, let's talk about your boss. Corinne shut down. Just shut down. Conversation over. She didn't want to hear it. And that's because she is Jessica Patterson light. I'm quite convinced of that. And this is a horrible thing that's happening. Now, I'm a delegate, by the way. So I feel the responsibility to pay the ridiculous money to go to this convention and to for the expense of the hotel and everything else. I don't have this kind of money, but I feel it's my responsibility to be there to vote. But every time I vote yes on something, it seems like the majority votes no, and vice versa. We are being railroaded by our own Republican Party, but we can't leave it, Benito. We have to correct it and fix it from within. We got to do what you were talking about. People like you, people like me, running for positions of power, running for the executive board in the Republican Party, so we can turn it back to what it was. That's why I'm a Republican, because it's the only political party that still maintains the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, and they still part of the platform is pro-life, and those are two things that they are fighting against. We have on the log cabin Republican side of things, they're all about, oh, it's fine for a woman to choose. And there are abortion pills now, as I call them, but the morning after pill. So you don't need to get a medical staff involved. You don't need to implicate the lives of nurses and doctors, forcing them to eradicate that life that's growing inside of you. So the whole thing about, well, we gotta represent women. They can take care of it themselves. It's all about the money. It's all about the power and the influence. And the ultimate goal that I believe in is one world government, new world order, depopulation. Depopulation. We need less people on this planet. That's what they worship. They worship at the altar of government. And the Republican Party was always against that. But now in California, they seem to be all for it. It's sad. It's sick. It's weird. It's wrong. But I'm going to be there at that convention coming up next month down in the San Diego area. I will be there, and I'm going to do what I can to vote my conscience and to vote biblically and biblical principles. But, dude, we can't quit on the party, because once we do that, we're never going to win anything.
Yeah, and it's not a matter of quitting on the party. You know, like I said, there's certain strategies that I put in place that sometimes strategies take 10 years, sometimes 16 years, and it's all panning out. Just to finish off with the whole Chavez thing, that was a strategy behind it, was that my goal was to say, okay, I know you're going to use this man to push your illegal immigration. So our strategy is going to be get the information out there showing that he's not supportive of it and make them attack him, which I never thought they would do. I said, it's going to be tough to make this happen.
Oh, he was the sacred cow, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He never said anything bad about Cesar Chavez.
But see, Charles, this is going to bite them in the rear. And that's why I tell Republicans candidates, stay out of it. Don't get into this Chavez issue. Stay out of it. The strategy was make the Democrats fight amongst each other. And that's exactly what's happening. This is turning on them because they're trying to bring, the term Chicano, it's not something we thought of. It's a term that was given us, right? So what they're trying to do now is separate the Chicano, so your audience understands. It's just an American citizen, first, second generation American citizens of Mexican descent. You know, that's pretty much what they call the Chicano. The term wetback that they used was those illegal immigrants coming across to work in the fields. So it wasn't like he was, Chavez was trying to use this word to put them down. It was just a term that was used, right? So what they're trying to do now is divide the raza. They're trying to divide, since they lost the support of the first and second generation, is what we call Chicanos. They lost that support. Now what they're trying to do is taint what Chavez stood for, to try to get as many illegal immigrants to support them, but at the same time to try to change some of us, and it's not going to work. Because like I said, a lot of us are educated.
We watched the left do the same thing with Martin Luther King.
But
he was their hero. They were worshiping at the King altar, and then Black Lives Matter. And all of a sudden we started saying, wait a minute, Martin Luther King was saying he wanted all of us to be together and to work together. Oh no, we're not interested in that. So look how they have villainized. The left has villainized Martin Luther King. Now they're doing the same thing with Cesar Chavez. You're absolutely right. This is hilarious. What I'm watching going on is they're imploding.
But the good thing is that God gives us wisdom. God gives us discernment, and God, knowing the future, will put things in our minds, thoughts in our hearts, and we just have to be willing to follow it. But I say, before you follow it, just make sure it aligns and God is getting the glory. Then you're aligned. But the bottom line is, so I'm not going anywhere. The podcast that we're starting, Americano Grassroots Revolution, it's been in the works for 6-7 months. Everybody's been wanting me to kick it off, so I'm going to probably kick it off. Might do it tomorrow, a little something tomorrow, because I've got these important speakers coming in that are involved with they were directly involved with Chavez. I have Jerry Salas from the band El Chicano. one of the most popular Chicano bands. He's a partner. He's going to be a co-host with me. I've got Gina Felix, who was Anna Felix's niece, and one of the most famous Mexican actresses. So I know a lot of the key players, and some of them are still Democrats, but they're like, Benny, we're becoming independents. We're done with this stuff. It's about time that everything that you've been saying for the past 16 years, we see it coming to light. And I said, and I told you it was going to take how many years? I told you it was going to take 16 years, but this is the way God works. Not everything is overnight. So, Charles, the most important thing for everybody right now is not what party you're associated with. Do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior? Because I strongly believe out of everything that he's shown me and everything I've been involved with, he is coming soon. He's coming soon, and we have to be ready. Amen. And if anything your listeners take, I would like them to walk away with that, because came from the dust, going back to the dust. But where do we end the rest of our life? Where is eternity?
Make sure your lamps are full of.
Yes, sir.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Where can we see your show? How can we get involved? How can we find you and follow what you're doing?
I'll be putting it out there right now. It's gonna all pop out under the Americano Grassroots Revolution. Haven't put anything out yet, really, but I do have. There is I think a TikTok page that we did temporarily just because of what was going on with Charlie Kirk, on Proposition 50. So if you go to TikTok, and I think Facebook may have a little bit of the Americano right now, but it was just a little clips we did we thought the message needed to be out there, so we got it out there so we can educate the Hispanic community, because we did it in English and Spanish. So that's going to be the other goal of the podcast. It's going to be bilingual. So I'm going to bring Democrats, Republicans. I'm going to invite Senator Padilla. Hey, let's sit down. Come on, dude. Let's talk, because all this nonsense you're talking about, all you're doing is creating chaos, and you're going to start a civil war.
You don't have a website or anything where people can go and follow
Nothing
what you're doing?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet.
Well, when you do, you got to come back
yes,
on. Hey, you mentioned Alex Padilla, who is a true villain, an absolute bad man. Well, there's one every bit as bad, if not worse, and that is Javier Becerra. Javier has now he came back to California after his little 4-year stint with the Biden administration from hell, and he's now decided he's gonna run for governor of California. They just canceled a governor's candidates debate at USC. Canceled it because there weren't any people of color running for governor and included in that debate. So they canceled it the day of. They canceled it. And I'm like, well, wait, what about Javier Becerra? Well, Mike Netter, KABC Radio in Los Angeles, said he wasn't invited because he's polling in the 1s and 2s. I'm like, what is going on? That Javier Becerra doesn't suddenly automatically have all this support from the Democrats and from the Latino community. What's going on? Well, I think you just explained a lot of it, Benito.
It's all there, Charles. People are waking up, and it took sometimes your own to step out and lead the way. And that's exactly what happened at that convention. Remember, I was talking about in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico. So every time I would get up to speak at the mic, there was 6 mics. The person before me would call the question, keeping me silent. So I said, I'm going to stay here during lunch break. Mic 6 is next. They're going to have to call on me. They try to kick me out. They try to literally put hands on me. The member stood up, said, leave him alone. Left me alone. I got up to speak. I challenged the leadership. I exposed the corruption. This was the first time in union history. That's where the domino effect began, where the members felt the courage to stand up and now challenge them. And you've seen more unions be exposed.
You want to talk about how anti-America the majority of unions are. You were in the SEIU?
Yes, sir. Service Employees International Union.
Oh, yeah. I know them very well. One of the most powerful in the nation. The only one that's the most powerful in the nation is the Teachers Union in California. The CTA, California Teachers Association, is a horribly bloated, ridiculously powerful union. But the SEIU, why would they have their convention, an American union, in Puerto Rico instead of the United States of America?
Great question. So here's the answer. We get there, The third day the convention starts, we pull up to go into the Coliseum, and there's a rally, a protest out there. Who's protesting? The teachers from Puerto Rico. Who were they protesting? SEIU. Why were they protesting SEIU? Because SEIU was trying to get rid of their union and take over the union there. So they were trying to buy them. So here we are at the protest. We've got all of a sudden, all these paddy wagons show up. They start arresting the protesters. It's blocked off. I look at my buddy and I say, "You got your camera?" Because that's when cell phones were already out. "Got your camera?" I go, "Roll this." So I crossed the line and I called all the leadership out. I said, "Wait a minute. Isn't this unionism? We talk about unionism. These people are out here exercising their rights and we're going to arrest them as a union?"
Yeah.
How hypocritical of that. So they finally called the international vice president. They came down, tried to talk to me. I said, "No." So one by one, people started jumping the line. Get them out, get them out. So they had to release all the teachers. So the teachers in Puerto Rico always said, "Benny, if you ever need a place to stay in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, our house is open to you." but
that's
that's
nice.
how,
I love it.
But Charles, it's just like what you're doing. It does take courage. Let's admit it. It takes courage because we don't know what's going to hit us. But when we have faith in God, we know that it's only going to happen when He's done with us. And all I ask God is, don't let it be painful. Take me home quietly.
and let me keep the rest of my large intestine, please.
Yes, please.
All right, man, you're awesome.
Thank you. God bless you, brother. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, partner. I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate you sharing these shows. Facebook deleted all of my pages last summer because of a thing I did about Pride Month. Remember what I was talking about? The homo mafia? They will steal, kill, and destroy because they're doing their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. So I had all my pages pulled and Instagram, 40,000 people suddenly gone. I can't let them know when I do new shows. So if you could follow this channel on Rumble, then you'll be notified. But you got to start up a Rumble account, just like YouTube. You can watch the shows and you can share them, but you can't participate unless you're a member, just like YouTube. So go to rumble.com/do-not-talk and please follow my page there and share these shows. Share these shows so other people can learn what you're learning right now from Benito Bernal. What a blessing. What a tremendous blessing that dude is. I hope you enjoyed this. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God.